Call of Duty Vanguard. Let's talk about it. So, it finally happened. After over a year of hearing how crappy the game was, I decided to buy it since it was on sale for more than 50% off on the Xbox store. And I gotta say, I was, not, let's say, impressed, for lack of a better word. Other people's reviews definitely did not let me down on what this game was. So, first off, let's talk about the campaign because that's about the only redeeming glory of this game. Now, personally, there was a lot of issues I had with the campaign, and it's not probably a campaign I'd want to go back and play because I just didn't feel it. Like most of the Call of Duty campaigns I really enjoy. This one, however, I really did not. So, even with, let's say, like Call of Duty World War II, which was another hated Call of Duty game, or even back to Call of Duty World at War, Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty United Offensive, or the first Call of Duty. All of them were centered around World War II, as Vanguard was, but all of them followed historical events. They were all pretty accurate as to what actually happened in those battles. Some of them you were actually taking on roles of soldiers who were in those battles. You were, literally taking part in the war that happened. And it was awesome to sit there and play through them. And every time you died, they would have, captions from, like, quotes from Winston Churchill or Joseph Stalin or a bunch of other important leaders at the time, or even quotes from, like, Greek mythology and their characters inside of it that were designed to inspire and encourage you as to, get back into the game and keep playing the battle. However, in this one, they decided to give you quotes from the characters in their game, which I personally think is really dumb. I'm not here to hear more quotes from my characters that they sit there and spew out these same quotes the whole time I'm playing the game from time to time. That's kind of not the point of the game. The whole point of me playing the campaign was to play through a campaign, and specifically since it was World War II, to have a World War II experience. And when that's completely taken away partially through the campaign's, death dialogue, so to say, it's not really dialogue, it's just those little title screens that have captions on them. And for it to just be more quotes from these completely fictitious characters in their completely fictitious universe and their completely fictitious World War II, it kind of took away from it, especially since Call of Duty normally doesn't do completely fictitious when it comes to their World War games. However, if we look at it as a completely fictitious game, the campaign was fun. It was fun to play through it as all these different characters, the 6, technically 7, because the first guy you start off as dies, but technically 7 characters of the campaign. It was kind of cool to go back through and, live through their stories a little bit at a time. However, historically speaking, there was a lot of errors here, such as different, groups of the Axis side of World War II using the wrong weapons. Even some of the Allies were using the wrong weapons. A bunch of stuff like that was just weird. Putting in, like, the Eagle Eyes thing for the pilot who was downed, where it's kind of like a magical ability almost. Just some weird things like that didn't really make sense. Didn't really have a place in the game because they just didn't fit. Things like that drew away from it. But overall, the campaign was kind of enjoyable if you're looking at it just fictitious. But again, since that's not something that Call of Duty normally does, it didn't feel right as a Call of Duty game. But if you leave that on its own, the story of the campaign is fun. But let's get into the actual campaign then. There's a lot of issues, like I said, historically speaking. I also had several game crashes where I had to exit the game completely and get back into the game in order for it to actually work so I could finish the campaign. There was a bunch of glitches and issues with the main characters, even as you're, like, following them around and everything, as, like, parts of their uniform would, like, glitch into their body or over other parts of their uniform, and you could just clearly see where it hadn't been properly edited, and it just looked like the game was put together hurriedly, and it wasn't fine-tooth combed, which is also disappointing because most of the previous Call of Duty games, even Call of Duty Cold War, which kind of sucked, at least its campaign, they didn't have glitches like that for the most part. But that's another story for another day. So overall, the campaign, while it was fun to play, there's a lot of glitches. There's a lot of graphics issues as far as, like I said, the glitches with their skins and stuff like that. There's just a lot of kind of disappointing things left into the campaign. And when you're done with it, you're not left with the normal Call of Duty feeling where you're like, all right, yeah, I won the war. You're just like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm glad it's over. So to me, it's really disappointing. Call of Duty is literally where I got my start in gaming, and to see a game like this is just disappointing. Moving on from the campaign, let's talk about the multiplayer. So, I personally tried to find some matches and get into it, and this game came out in November of 2021, so it's only been out for about a year and a half. And I gotta say, there's nobody on here. Depending on what server you play on and what limitations you put, across all consoles and PCs, there's about, because I just looked at it today, there's about 707 active daily players with about 3,000 to 6,000 active weekly players. So there's not a lot of people here. And when you limit it down to, like I did, just to Xbox, just because I was curious to see how many players were on Xbox versus on PC, I was stuck for most of the matches I was getting into about 10 to 15 minutes between each round because I had automatic matchmaking turned off. And I ended up getting stuck waiting 10 to 15 minutes to get into a match. That's kind of disappointing when I just bought this game and here I am trying to play the multiplayer and there's nobody on there. Now, there is good reason for it though. When I played, every single match I played, I was the top scorer, and it was literally my first day in the game. Like, literally, my first match that I played, I had the highest kill and the best KD out of every player on the game, and all of them were a higher rank than I was. Incredibly disappointing to see that. Now, let's talk about the maps themselves. So I don't think I covered all the maps as I was playing. I might go back and see if I can set up a match against bots so I can play through them. But I played through the maps, and they were just so crammed full of stuff. Like cars, dilapidated buildings, like statue heads that had fallen over, like phone booths, subway ramps, all kinds of random stuff in the maps. That it was literally the first time I ever got sick playing a video game. Because there's just so much stuff crammed into the map that I couldn't figure out where I was going or what I was doing, which is again why it surprised me that I was the highest scorer in all of the games I played when it was literally my first time in the maps and the game, and I was getting sick from playing it. But anyways, there's just too much going on in all of the maps I played. There's just too much between the weather elements, the lighting, the fire on the ground. There's just so much going on that the maps actually made me physically sick. Which I know a lot of people have said that some of the previous Call of Duty games haven't had enough in their maps and it's too easy to get killed or this, that, or the other thing. So it's nice that they did fill in the area. However, they filled it in too much. They went from one extreme to the other. Now, I personally don't think the other Call of Duty games didn't have enough inside of their maps, so I would disagree with most people there. However, to each their own. So overall, the multiplayer experience was just less than stellar. I did not enjoy it. So then I tried to move on to the zombies, trying to play the zombies and see if it was any good. I was not impressed. At least Call of Duty World War II, their zombies was still good. Even though it was different from all of the other Call of Duty zombie experiences we had, it was still good. This one was not. I was not happy with how it worked. I was not happy with how the maps worked. I wasn't happy with the wonder weapons, if you can call them that. I wasn't happy with how any of it worked. It was not smooth. It was not pleasant. It was not an enjoyable experience at all. So I personally didn't like it. Plus, as far as I could tell from the game version I bought, there's only like 4 to 6 types or 4 to 6 maps to play on. There's nothing there for content for zombies. I don't know if you've ever played zombies before, but if you have, even on Black Ops 2, there's like 10 different maps with like 3 different playstyles on each map for what you could do. There are so many different options. And that was, 13 years ago. So it's not like they don't have the ability to make good zombie games. So, anyways, overall, the zombies was very lackluster, very disappointing, and I did not enjoy it at all. Which is sad because most of the Call of Duty games I play for the zombies. So, overall, would I recommend this game? If you're not looking to play Call of Duty and you want to have a fun campaign experience, go ahead and grab the campaign. I don't think you can just buy the campaign on its own, but the campaign is a lot of fun to play through if you forget that it's a Call of Duty game and you ignore the graphical glitches and some of the bugs. So, really not that good, but there's only about 6 hours for the campaign length, which is normal for Call of Duty games. So, you don't have much content there. I do know overall throughout the whole game, it does take about 17 and a half hours to complete, like to get 100% completionist. So there is a lot of stuff to do in the game, so to speak. Not as much as other Call of Duty games, but hey, that's what we get with Vanguard, I guess. So, no, I wouldn't recommend Vanguard to Call of Duty players. I wouldn't recommend Call of Duty Vanguard to probably anyone. However, if you are looking for a fun World War II campaign experience that doesn't follow historical aspects hardly at all, including like red dot sites and all that kind of stuff, magical things involved, so to speak, go ahead and play the game. You might have fun playing the campaign. But hey, I'll leave that up to you.